It is time to engage! Alright guys, this was another exciting week. Yeah. Today we're talking about Orville 210, which is Blood of Patriots, and comparing that to Discovery's 208, which is If Memory Serves. Now, I think the very first thing we need to talk about is the biggest way-back, playback, previously on I have ever seen before any show. Yeah. Because, you know, sometimes I feel like, it's been a while since last week, or last season, or like, man, 4 seasons ago, this cool idea is coming back. Let's talk about what happens when there's like 6 decades between episodes.
That's very cool.
Vanya, how did you feel the moment it said previously on Star Trek and the font delivered the nostalgia? What did you think?
Oh, it was so nice. Yeah. It was just such a hit. Like, it brought me right into the space. They did it. That's such a smart choice, I think, to connect people who are really big fans. And then if you are new to Star Trek too, you're like, this is kind of cool. Like, I want to tap into that nostalgia, you know, I want to feel that. And so I was really happy that they made the choice. And I thought the clips that they chose were really good, like to tell the story.
Yeah. Sonia, how do you feel?
I thought the way, I felt, I was delighted. And I thought the way the music in the present day scenes, in the Discovery scenes that were on Talos, I thought that it was similar, and I really liked it. I liked that the cohesion that brought, and I was again delighted. Yeah,
I could not believe the balls on this show, because not only are they going to show you all these faces that are not the faces that represent these characters anymore, they will then cut directly from Jeffrey Hunter's face. To the new Jeffrey Hunter, and you're just like, Anson Mount looks like pretty. That's a very good choice.
Yeah, I thought it was bold. It was bold, and I watched that cut a few times because I thought it was really good. I was like, oh man, that's nice, and like I like that juxtaposition. It was really nice.
So, did we get enough Talos for that build-up? What do you think, Vanya? Did it feel like it was where we wanted to go and we got something out of it that made sense? Or did it feel like nostalgia for nostalgia's sake to you?
No, I think it made sense, and then I think they did a better job of, I think they did a really good job of kind of like saying, okay, now we're in the future telling the story, so we're gonna make it a little flashier, a little, like, but not, they didn't go over the top. So we're getting, you know, the Talosians look better, I think, and even the blue singing flower also looked better. So I thought it was worth it. In my opinion.
I feel like there's such a thing as a refreshing and an updating of an image so that it looks good in high definition, and then there's reinventing a Klingon to be something completely different. Sonia, what do you think about the Talosians? Was that a good change, or did you not quite buy it?
Oh no, I did, and there were some very nice moments for me when Venus said they want to see you underground. I got a little nervous, right? Because in the past episodes there was a bad scene for the Federation underground, but the way, because the relationship to Talos is different, you know, Spock needs to get there in order to, you know, move the story forward, in order to make things right for himself and for who knows, right? We don't know what's going to be happening with the Red Angel. I thought, I just liked the way they integrated the Talosian landscape and the new story and the old Talosian ways. And I like that the Talosians were different. You know, it was, so that was very satisfying.
I thought it was a little bit bizarre that she was just able to say one to beam down, and the ship knew exactly where to put her in something that was kind of difficult to penetrate for the Enterprise. You know, and it's not like the elevator's working anymore, so like there were a few things that they needed to sort of work their way around. And I thought it was interesting that there was only basically one set they built. Yeah. Because they were in a quarry in like southwestern Ontario for most of it, but there was one small set that they never left. Yes. And I remembered feeling in the cage like that was such a labyrinthine, impressive corridor that you never knew what was around the corner, and that they were always in one spot was like budgetarily suspicious. I found. Sure. But I also thought the Talosians looked like beefy.
Oh yeah.
Talosians are always like
They're always,
spindly, Morlocky.
Yeah, like their
underground
bodies
folk.
are tiny,
Yeah.
but the heads, like they're dominated by their head
Yeah.
thing, and that they're like wimpy.
But
like,
these were like
yeah, they were
bigger
kinda
and
hulking.
tougher and yeah.
Or maybe that's just what you're seeing.
Maybe,
Like,
maybe
that's
that's
what they
just
wanted.
what they knew I wanted to see. So let's get into the Orville and talk about how essentially the number one source for pee and fart gags was the dramatic lead of this episode. Mm-hmm. What did you think of Malloy getting to do a dramatic turn?
Yeah, so I watched Scott Grimes' career, so he's usually a dramatic actor, actually, because, and it actually reminded me of his turn in Band of Brothers, because where he was Malarkey, very close name, anyway. And so I know that he can do that kind of thing. So, but for other people, I imagine that would be more surprising if they, just know him from American Dad and now this.
Yeah, he's just fart gags.
Yeah, and so, but when I was looking at it, I was like, this is kind of cool, because it was like a soldier thing, like that. That's what all he did in Band of Brothers. Like, he was like the good guy who, like, was a comrade to, the other soldiers, like really close to everybody. And so I was like, oh, it's just kind of, he's done this before. You know what I mean? Except it's for people that have never seen it. They're like, oh, it's brand new. He doesn't, but it's not brand new to him, which is kind of cool.
What did you think of extra range on Grimes?
It worked, and I'm a sucker for that storyline. Where a person's loyalties are tested. And I thought that, I don't know, I wasn't surprised that he was so good at it. I wasn't surprised that, maybe it worked for him.
Yeah, it struck me as a bit of a first duty moment where, Wesley had his loyalties to his comrades back when they were cadets, and that they did this thing they shouldn't have. And, when Tom Paris was Tom Paris before he was Tom Paris.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And there was that sort of discussion between these two kids, really. Yeah. And this was like, if that trauma had 20 years to fester, how different that relationship might be if they came back together.
Sure.
And it was neat to, especially with the way they cut the storyline, for us to not know where his loyalties actually were.
It reminded me a little bit of DS9 when Kira is faced with a former. They used the word terrorist to describe
rebels.
Rebels.
Yeah.
A rebel comes and she has to choose again.
Yeah.
So it reminded me of that. Again, a great storyline for especially for characters that aren't, always don't get all the most of the attention, all the dramatic beats. Yeah.
So I found this episode to be like, it was a challenge for me, because I was like, I've seen this episode, and it was on TNG.
Yeah.
And it's called The Wounded, and it's with O'Brien, and it's almost verbatim.
Is it?
Except the only twist makes it different is that Oren dies. That it's like a bigger sacrifice. And the other one, it's like O'Brien gets him to stand down, and then he's, I guess, gonna go to space jail. But so I, to me, I was just like, well, they just they have Star Trek people working for them, and they basically just took the episode and just changed it. I can't tell you how many things are the same. They're both of Irish descent. They both have a friend that they knew long ago, or like somebody that they fought in a war against. That they still, the person still has conflicting things about the fight that they had, the war that they've gone through with the Krill, or in this case, in TNG's Cardassians. There's like a lot of hate there. That they both, the Oren and, I think his name's Ben Maxwell or something, they both lost their families to the thing. Like, there's actual dialogue that's the same. Worf says that he, that trust is earned. Kelly says that trust is earned. They're both decorated officers. Like, it's like everything's exactly the same.
So that storyline works. And Orville knows what we like.
Needless to say, Blood of Patriots has some. It's couched in Star Trek of old, and I've got to say, the moment he arrived with his daughter, I just thought,
something's up.
Firefly, Serenity, River Song, like everything about that made me just think, oh, this is this is just River, and we're about to watch her be a weapon. He arrived with a weapon. They don't know how he's a weapon. And at first I was like, oh, well, how is she a weapon? And, oh, she's silent and weird. I was like, oh my god, she's just River.
Yeah.
But then once we found out that an invol has crazy blood,
yes.
it was
that's another different thing from TNG.
But it was interesting how nitrogen factored into both of these episodes, because I watched them back to back. And when they landed on Talos, the discussion was nitrogen, oxygen, and the atmosphere. And I was just like, oh, shit, watch out for that nitrogen. And then I realized,
because it's only 18% oxygen on Talos from what the computer said. Is that enough for humans? It must be. It must be, because she was okay, but I didn't. I thought
nitrogen
that's enough.
There's a lot more nitrogen.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry.
Thank you, science people.
And if there's too much oxygen, you get like a little happy and weird.
Yeah, that's what they pump into Las Vegas.
Exactly. So, can we talk a little bit about B storylines and this idea of pairing an A story with a B story in a way that makes the episode feel like it sort of dovetails and works? Often, when you do that in television, they even have similar morals, or they mirror each other. What did you guys think about the story happening on Talos, and then the story happening with Culber? Did it feel at all like this belonged in the same episode to you, or was it just like, oh, welcome distraction for this B story?
I think it worked for me because it's like two pairs of people that, in some way have cared for each other, that hurt the one, has hurt the other. So it kind of worked for me in that way. And they're also talking about who they are, like what they represent. Are they even who they're supposed to be? Spock, dealing with that. Am I, human? Am I Vulcan? What I mean? Am I, Klingon? Am I almost said, am I Worf?
Am I Worf?
Am I Klingon? Am I Klingon? Am I human? Am I dead? Am I alive? Right? So I felt like I don't know, it worked out for me on that level.
Yeah.
Sonia, what did you think?
I think it works too. For me, besides that, it works because I thought when Hugh came back, I thought, I don't know if Hugh and Paul together again is actually, interesting at this point. And we were shown in the last episode that he was struggling, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought, where are they going to go with this? How are they going to make this interesting? I think this is very interesting. I think the what's happening between the two of them is heartbreaking, but has it's got a lot of meaning, and I'm looking forward to seeing where they take it. And it wasn't too much time on the B story. It was just enough, and I really like seeing Culver get mad like that. I really like. Yeah. He played it beautifully.
I also liked referee Saru, who decided. Obviously, they need counselors on these ships because settling things by gladiatorial combat is not a good plan.
But it was great.
I sensed it though, and I was just like, I like that. Pike brought up that he wouldn't have made that decision before. I like that they haven't let go of that part, that Saru's changed, and that showed
that aggression is there.
And I totally really? Is this what we're gonna do next? But I couldn't believe Wilson Cruz. I couldn't believe his acting in that.
It's beautiful.
That fight. It was just the grab, his body language, the grabbing of his neck, the hands in the pockets, I'm gonna have restraint, but no, I really want to hurt you. I'm gonna bring it out of you, and I couldn't stop thinking about how they're the same now.
Yes.
I couldn't stop thinking about that. You're almost cut from the same cloth now because you don't know who you are.
This duality is such an issue. And I thought it was interesting that, there was all this complaining during season 1 that they've killed their first out homosexual couple, and I was worried that as they were doing damage control in season 2, they would just be like, see, they're together, it's fine now.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm so glad they've managed to tell a story where these two characters aren't just getting to live happily ever after because they have a gay relationship and we're trying to protect that social justice element of things. I think it's an important thing to be able to plumb the depths of every relationship, and it's so cool to me that they decided to take this turn with it.
Yeah, I felt like it was bold. They're making bold choices. They're committing to things. They're not being wishy-washy, and I think that's great.
Yeah, this episode was bold. What did you guys think about Tala? in this episode of the Orville, because I gotta tell you, I am still not totally sold on Tala. I really miss Alara. And every time I see her do anything, I think to myself, well, that would have been Alara, and yeah, you would have said you want to open this jar of pickles for me. Like, there are moments that happen where she does something that should have been Alara. And you can feel in the writing that it should have been Alara.
It's still, like, sticky. Like, it gets stunted. I do feel like it's good that she's more aggressive than Alara, because at least that, like, makes her so different in that area that they can't really be compared. But then they still haven't, I don't think they got her quite right. I like that she's very smart, you know, and cautious. But it's almost like they don't even trust the character completely in the writing. Because I was even thinking, like, when, you know, the doctor asked her to get out of the room, and then she told the bridge to, I'm like, she's the security, she's head of security, she has her own office, right?
Yeah.
Like, she could make a level 12, you know, force field, and then tell the bridge after why she did it, you know what I mean? She can do all that stuff, which she has complete control, like, over most everything on the ship. And so I thought, even in the writing, they kind of don't trust that character yet.
But I think they can go there with this character now. Because I'm thinking about Alara, and what I liked about Alara was there seemed to be a little more dimension to either the way it was written and the physicality of that actress, and just the way that they wrote her, so that the difference between her strength and when she wasn't engaged in that super Chilean strength was compelling. I find there's not a lot of dimension in this character, and I think maybe it's in the writing, but I think they can go there with her, that she can display that authority sooner than later. You know, if they let her.
There's less dissonance, I find. Like with Alara, she was a small, like, gentle, like, voiced character that had this crazy power in her. But Tala feels like a biker chick. Well, like, everything about her feels like, yeah, she should be able to do all these things.
Because
and
she's so sure.
Yeah.
She's so sure of herself. Where Alara, one of her, like, growth character things was that she wasn't sure of herself. Where Tala is, like, totally sure of herself. Like, when she throws, she's like, have you met, you know, and then she throws her and she's like, you have now. Like, but she said it very, like, it's one of my favorite moments of hers, because she said it so, you know, steady.
Yeah.
I think I hope they'll try to do is make her vulnerable in other ways, and kind of maybe take some things away from her, so that we can see that vulnerability, because she's so sure she has the strength, and she's sure of the strength that Alara. I think that's where the discomfort comes in.
Yeah,
you know?
There's not enough.
Because there's like,
not
what's the point of that? Yeah, what's the point of that if it's just gonna everything you're completely sure about and completely strong about?
Yeah. So
but maybe she's like Worf in that way.
Yeah. So how would they make it work with her? I think they'd have to take it to the point where she abuses her strength and her power. That would be an interesting thing.
And she kind of does, though.
Yeah, when she pounds the shit out of that girl.
But she, like, look, like, I think it was actually pretty poignant that Claire said, if you had, like, hit her any harder, like, it could these
it would have blown up the ship,
consequences. If they, like, attached to that, because that's the kind of thing that Worf had to deal with, like, his aggression, like, how he's powerful, he has the strength, you know what I mean? But they had to tap into other vulnerabilities and actually how he can hurt people, you know? And so maybe that will be
the way that they
give her dimension. I don't know.
Yeah.
So swinging back to Discovery, are we all in agreement that Ariam is totally, like, sabotaging it to make it look like Tyler is?
Of course!
Yeah.
Like, the instant, like, and then I was like, the instant I saw her on the screen, the first time I saw her, I was like, whoop, there's that mole!
Guilty!
Like, there's the mole! Yeah, it's rough. She's really screwed him over.
Yeah.
But nobody's noticing anything yet. Like, not yet.
Only we get to see the little predator.
Yeah.
Well, she's made a path, like there's like a path back to him. Like, she's covered her tracks because she's a computer.
Yeah. But she is a cybernetically enhanced human.
Okay.
Which means when Spock says he knows that the Red Angel is a human, but also in this suit, it would stand to reason that Ariam could have been given the same treatment as that probe, and would still have all of the same bits that make her up, and she would still be human, which would mean she would have all of the like advanced technology that would come from being from the future, but would still have that core of being human, kind of in the way in Drone, in Voyager, when there's those. There's the DNA from some random yellow shirt officer combining with the Borg nanoprobes from Seven and combining with the hollow emitter from the 29th century. All of that turns into super powerful future Borg drone. And it's like, it feels a bit like that's the beat that might be happening here, where there's a time dilation that happens to Ariam, and she becomes the Red Angel, but she's still made of all the same bits.
Yeah, I feel like they're doing like, but it's like a similar thing that there's an embedded person that's in the crew, like Tyler was last season.
Familiar
you know what I mean? Where they don't know why things are happening around them. And that makes, I'm just like, oh, okay, we're doing that again, kind of thing.
Because like Ariam's obviously collecting the probe bits and hiding them somewhere.
Yeah.
Like they're...
Because that was their mission, and she was in charge of it, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then for some reason they could only find parts of the shuttlecraft, and it's like... and you're like, I guess that's the reason. Because every time there was a point where, in the episode, they were like, why is that happening? It would cut to all the bridge crew, but the first one would always be Ariam.
yeah, exactly.
I'm not guilty. This is my I'm not guilty face. So it's fascinating the way they're playing this emotionless rubber face, because like that actor has changed and it looks exactly the same because it's all just rubber.
Yes. I like it though.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure we saw the original Ariam actress again in this episode.
Oh, okay.
She was that random blonde who was like, oh no, for a moment. And it was just for a moment you see this random blonde character in the same boring marching band outfit, but there's just, which I know you like, but there's just this moment where you're like, that's the second time that like random background actor has had a line.
Yeah,
and it's because that actress was bridge crew all last season with the Ariam makeup. But I don't know, maybe she has some sensitivity.
I am anxious about it. I hate when there's a character among everybody that
how's it gonna who's gonna
and I'm so poor Tyler, because like Tyler's like playing this line of being like really loyal to Burnham, like he truly believes he believes in her completely, like explicitly, like he's just like everything she does is like the best. She doesn't make bad choices, and then everybody like it was like so easy to turn on him, and I don't blame them either. Remember when Pike says anybody could be pushed, basically talking, and he says, yeah, you could be.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh snap, Pike, that's mean, but that's why they were so like all on a dime. I think maybe Tilly might be the only person that like kind of stopped to listen to him, but she's always kind of been on his side.
Well, she's really sympathetic to everybody.
Yes,
that's the lovely thing about Tilly. I love that this episode when she leans over, step into my office.
Yeah, her whole head hangs.
That was a lovely little like 10 seconds, 20 seconds between them. The what the hell is it called, guys? What did they call? What did she call the probe? She described it like
a cephalopod.
Cephalopod.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Like, what's that?
It's like a squid.
Beautiful moments.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable.
Yes.
Now, what did you think about the recasting of Vina? Is it Michelle George?
Melissa George.
Melissa George. Who I think looks alarmingly similar to Rebecca Romaine. Like
they do have a lot of similar bone structure. And
when she first showed up, when we first saw her face, when we were done with the leg close up, the like really low angle. Look at these legs
so
walking onto here.
Yeah.
But it was a very 60s short skirt, so
it makes sense.
I understand. But I feel like there was a moment where she turns for the first time and she's so backlit that you can't really make out her face all that well.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is Rebecca Romaine, but she's familiar. Why is she familiar? She played Haggerty's wife in the first, if you've seen the Sean Penn
she's
series.
A long-working
She's
like
been doing
television
a lot.
actor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I remember her looking exactly like that in a show I watched last year, which is why I was like, she's so familiar. That's not Rebecca Romaine unless it is.
You could make the argument, too, that like in The Cage, number one was supposed to be maybe one of his Eves. and along with Vina, like, you know, so maybe, I don't know, maybe they wanted to play on that a bit.
Maybe.
Who knows?
What did you think of the casting of Vina? Did you like her?
Yeah.
Vina's kind of like,
I did. She was just a tool, right? She was just
Like an emissary?
I guess so. Yes, I guess so. I mean, she's very meaningful to Pike, but I think she was effective. I think that the way they wrote her and the way she carried it out was effective.
I could have gone with more grotesque makeup, though.
yeah,
I was expecting that to be worse. I was expecting that to be worse.
It wasn't even as grotesque as the cage.
Original, yeah.
So I thought they were going to make it like really nasty this time.
Because she is deeply mangled
Yeah.
in the cage. And in this, I couldn't tell because, again, she was backlit. I was like, oh, they did some makeup stuff. not
I wanted more of a hunchback.
Actually, I thought, that's
I wanted more of a hunchback.
Me
and
too.
more
Her hunch is
like
the cool
one
thing.
eye over here and one
Yeah,
down.
because they
Goonies.
put me back together, but the way they thought, even though they're humanoid, like, I'm like, come on, guys.
You didn't put her together with a giant head and skinny arms, so I think you kind of missed it.
But I really wanted it to be more grotesque also.
Yeah, I did find
What does that say about us?
disappointing.
I would like to say the chemistry between Pike and Vina was okay. You know, it wasn't.
It didn't knock my
electric.
socks off.
Didn't
Yeah.
knock my socks off either. And I'm thinking, hello, it's Pike, woman. What's going
I should
on?
be way more impressed.
Come on.
Especially in the cage when he wanted to be like a slaver, basically.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? I love how he just freely admits that. Yeah, you know, maybe I'll sell some women. I can do that.
What did you guys think of the blatant ripoff of Interstellar when they go crashing into orbit around Talos 4 and it's an accretion disk of a black hole instead of... Yeah, I think it really relied on you having seen enough sci-fi to notice that this is scary.
Yes. Yeah, because it's like a lot really.
No, I thought it was scary.
Yeah.
I haven't seen all the things.
Okay,
good.
Did I see Interstellar? I don't remember it.
You might have blocked it out.
I don't remember it.
It's not a great film. It would be an okay 3-night miniseries. Not a great film.
No, I love that moment. I love that moment. The visuals were fantastic. I love the sound, the visuals. I love the way Spock and Burnham,
Just
made that happen.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good because he kind of comes alive then.
Yes.
You know, and I said to my husband, I said, wow, look at how hot Spock is. And he said, every Spock there is. You think it's hot like Leonard Nimoy, you were like, wow, Spock's really hot. So I can't really judge that. But yeah, I really thought their sibling stuff was pretty good too.
I really enjoyed do you honestly think the beard is working?
Yeah, because do you have any questions in your arsenal that
relevant?
and I thought that back and forth was like the Vulcan sibling rivalry was on point.
Because I could see any one of my sisters saying that to me, and I would see that happen.
They really
makes sense. I think it was fascinating to get to see the redux of several things from the very first episode. What do you think of our singing plants?
I thought that was so neat because I think that was a good update. Yeah. And, instead of like a pipe cleaner and tissue paper from season one. But they were good. But I did think that this update was really good. I like that they made her actually touch it.
Yes.
And then I like that Giorgio made the joke about it. Like, so that it connected, and they showed the Spock and Pike interaction. So it wasn't like she just touched it and like it just faded away into nothing. There were like 3 separate...
It played 3 times, which was nice. And I love that the first time you see it, Spock is giggling, and it's Leonard Nimoy Spock giggling.
Yeah.
And, of course... that didn't really get explained how he giggled before this, but is not a giggler anymore. I was hoping on Talos we would see that he gets some kind of logic reboot, and now he's colder than ever or something, and that would explain why he's different in the cage than he is in the Menagerie. But I like that they started with that. Burnham played with it and giggled, and then Giorgio was like, "Nah, I just nuked them all from orbit." Hate those guys.
She was the nuker.
I agree with you. I thought it was going to be it would have almost been better, I always think of, Spock, how they changed how he became completely logical and he wasn't really, never smiled. It would have been made more sense now that he's gone through this because he's like working on building his logic again. Like the human side is like sneaking back in kind of thing. So it would have been like, oh, by the time we get to Menagerie, he's like real
back
serious.
to the Spock we know.
Yeah.
But then the question arises, whose sense of humor does say goodbye Spock come from? Is that the Talosians being funny? Is that them plumbing it directly out of Michael's mind? Because Michael doesn't have like a rip-roaring sense of humor either.
Yeah.
And it certainly shouldn't be Spock, because Spock and jokes are like oil and water. So how the hell did that happen?
And they had just finished, and the scene before that, between the two of them, was not a happy brotherly sister scene. I mean, it was terrific, but they didn't end off as, buddies.
Yeah.
And I thought, that stood out for me. That was a little bit dissonant. But I wonder if it was the Talosians.
I think
what do we think? They have a sense of humor?
No, I think it's the Talosians tapping into, because they can read in their mind. So they're tapping into their sibling, like maybe something that they might have done like when they were kids.
Yeah, when they were kids.
Like, you know what I mean? And they're like projecting that.
The
internal, like subconscious of Spike and Spike?
Spike.
Buffy? This is a show about Buffy.
Spock plus Mike is the Spike. I like it.
Spock and Mike. Yeah, I think I did like.
I like it.
Spock and Michael. I think it's like tapping into that part of them, because they like are able to read. They're showed all their childhood stuff.
Now, do you guys think it was worth it to go to Talos? Because when we look at episodes of Enterprise where there's a 3-episode arc to explain what happened with eugenics, or a 3-episode arc that explained how Klingons lost their bumps, like, they go deep into nostalgia and they hand us a beautiful answer that cleans up a whole mess.
Yeah.
They could have used this trip to Talos to explain why Spock never talks about Michael, why Spock giggles in the cage and never laughs again. Like, they could have used this as a chance to, like, reach into Spock's mind, put it back together, and have him be the Spock we know. And they just left Talos without doing any of that. But basically just patching him up by allowing him to remember getting insulted by his sister.
Yeah, and why did he need that?
Yeah. Did that feel right to you?
No, it felt it felt unfinished. It felt.
Was it a good use of Talos?
Well, I think dramatically it worked. I know the way they put it together, it worked, Matt. But that was missing for me. I thought, okay, is that all he needed? All that, and all Spock needed was someone to help him and his sister.
Have a sibling argument.
A mind sort of. I thought, okay. Well, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna believe it. It worked, and now we're moving towards something else. But I didn't think that was completed properly.
I felt like the episode hung on nostalgia hard,
right,
and did not actually deliver a plot that hit a bullseye. And they were putting every piece of the oldest, most like the original Little Green Men from Star Trek, all of it.
Yes.
They went all in on this hand, and I feel like they kind of bluffed us.
Well, they didn't. I don't know that they used all the parts to their advantage. I think it was worth it. Like, I enjoyed it, and if you want to, the way I took it was like, in the Menagerie, when finally they go back there, and Spock is so trusting of the Talosians. He's so trusting, and he so wants this for Pike, and he so believes in his mission that he breaks all these rules to do it. It makes sense now, and so if you're connecting it to that, then yeah, they did enough. But if you're talking about this show only, then they didn't do enough. But in companion with the Menagerie, then you're like, oh yeah, they gave him something in the past, they helped him out, and now he's
delivering.
He trusts them that completely.
Also, I think that what's working in season 2 is I think they've got a good handle on the serial aspect of Star Trek, right? In making it feel episodic, but carrying the storyline right over. But and maybe that's. I feel like I'm having to get used to this new kind of Star Trek working.
Well, and
Right?
it still feels a bit like a ripoff when they give you a 35-minute episode, which is what we got last week, and they give you a 56-minute episode, which is what we got this week. It still feels to me like this is a show that should not be given out week to week. I don't mind you giving me an episode in the 30s if I can binge the next one that's in the 50s because I understand where you've decided to put your act breaks. But did you think this episode being super long and last week being super short didn't really affect your enjoyment of it?
No, it didn't.
Okay, Daniel?
It didn't really change it for me either.
But I did notice one thing. I did notice for this time, which you had asked me about it in another episode, and I didn't notice it, but the amount of the episode before the credits.
Yeah.
I went,
Why? How long the cold
why,
open is.
why are they showing the credits now? I thought we were halfway through.
Yep.
You know? And so that's and I'm thinking, don't show the credits anymore. Come on, we know them
get
all. We get it. You know,
Or
skip
just
intro.
or like Lost, just and that's it.
Right.
All you need.
Because there's 78 producers and they have to show
Because every director's a producer, and
Right.
it's like the same problem they had last year. It's like if you're coming in to direct an episode, maybe you don't need to be a producer. Maybe you're just a director, and the fact that Brian Fuller's name is still on there, like it's taken up a lot of space to have these people who don't actually do anything on the show anymore.
I'm surprised Gene Roddenberry's name isn't on there. Is it?
Is
It probably
it?
Characters
is.
based
It is.
on, even
Yeah.
Eugene Roddenberry's in
Yeah.
there.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
do you think he's in the writing room? Like,
It's the Orville is really taken, like it's their cold opens are like purely mapped out, just like TNG. It's built up almost like frame for frame TNG cold open, and so that makes their job a little easier. Discovery, they do have long extended cold opens where you're like, oh, I'm not halfway through this episode.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you really do feel it. I don't know. This cold open did work for me, though.
it felt like an act break to me, and I feel
Yeah.
like you should just be front-loading the credits,
Yeah.
and then just give me the whole episode.
Yeah, just get into it.
They're not really hitting. It's a web series.
They've always had that
but it's
challenge.
I feel like this show still doesn't quite know what shape it should take in so many dimensions.
Yeah.
It's still,
Should
again,
screen?
I don't know. Anybody watching a web series on a CinemaScope projector somewhere in a movie theater? Because I think zero people are watching it.
They've only had like a couple cold opens that were like, bam, that are like, they come in, it's quick, and then we get it, and we've really
ready.
noticed that.
And we're ready for the show. 'Cause
And
that's what
we
they're
really
supposed to
noticed
do.
that. But
Yeah.
it's like, I feel like they're also tapping it. There's some shows from back in the day, like older shows from like the 80s and 90s where their cold opens went on forever, and you're like, oh my god, it's just starting now, and that's kind of old school. So it's weird because they're trying to do everything modern and then still doing the same thing.
And it's interesting that the Orville is playing with these story arcs that run through multiple seasons, where we're now seeing the Krill come to the table for conversation about peace, and that we're actually seeing episodic television on the Orville done in a way that feels much more modern than TNG, where they just got lucky with the same cast in the beginning and end of the show. Like the arc of having Q show up a few times was not story arcing. That was just figuring out what the hell the next episode's about. Yeah. And I feel like we've really got people working on the Orville that are plotting out huge arcs. And what did you guys think of the stakes of the Krill being on the ship and having an honest diplomatic conversation? How did that feel for you? Did that feel organic with where the season's been taking us?
Yeah, I think so. It made sense. They made it connected with the war that they just had with the
Kaylons?
Kaylons.
Not the Cylons.
The Kaylons. Yeah, that's what I was trying to not say.
Yeah.
The Kaylons. And so it does make sense. I predicted it would happen. They did talk about that it was a possibility, and then now it's kind of playing out as it should ish.
Conveniently.
Yeah. And so they're doing it. They're doing it.
I think two things about that storyline. One, I thought the way that Tala stalled them was not serious, not weighty enough for the rest of the show.
Well, you didn't like
It was a little. It was distracting
It's
for
back
me.
to the season 1 where they can't find the balance
Yes.
of comedy to drama.
But I loved the twist. I loved the way the story. I loved what happened with Malloy and Oren and Malloy and the captain, and I loved it. Yeah, I thought that they handled that really well, and I really liked the way that Captain Mercer was portrayed and handled things in this, especially at the end.
He dealt with some difficult stuff.
And it was similar to, do you remember how I said I didn't love the way that where and how Pike revealed the vulnerability to Ash, even though I think like you, I do like when a captain has some vulnerability. Yes. I loved the way that Mercer revealed it to Malloy in this.
Yeah, because you had said that was, you had said you thought maybe it was weakness. And, you know, I had said that, like, it was the placement and, like, how he did it. Like, why are you doing that casually just as a throwaway on the bridge? That's a mistake. Yeah. Even though you should say it. Why then? Where, you know, Mercer shows up, you know, to ask to go to a beer with his jacket open. And so it's, and it's in, like, his friend's quarters. That's, like, a much better thing. Because I immediately thought of Pike, but I was just like, why in that space, like, quickly? It's like they had to do it, but they just kind of threw it in that spot where this was a little bit, there was more thought.
And that's right, and the writing was better. The way that Mercer expressed it was better than the way they had Pike.
It felt less jimmied.
Yeah, it wasn't and just the words he used too. It didn't seem to. It was didn't work.
And it was two people who should have that conversation.
Yes.
Like, the idea of Pike having that conversation with Tyler is like, no.
Well, no.
But that conversation between pals we've seen for 2 seasons where he says, I can't be this vulnerable around other people or they'll have doubts about me. Like, that makes sense because of who that character is, and we've seen him for 2 years be that guy. I think we didn't know Pike enough, and Pike didn't know Tyler enough for that scene to happen.
Too
certainly not on the bridge.
Not just there quickly on the bridge after just averting like a crisis. It was just not. I think I'm glad that it was said. Like, but I don't think. Yeah, it was at the right time.
Maybe we needed to hear it, but we didn't need to. Maybe he didn't have to say it to Tyler.
That's a good point.
And or use a log.
Yeah.
Which they did again. They did it again. And I was like, oh my god, they're getting it.
All right. Well, I think it is time
to go red.
To take us to Red Alert. Yes, like the Red Angel. We need to now talk about which episode trekked it, which episode wrecked it. And who the Red Angel is. Vanya.
Oh, do we have?
Discovery.
Discovery.
Trekked it or wrecked it. And who's the Red Angel?
Trekked it.
Okay.
It's hard, in my opinion, not to trek this episode. Just because of it starts off with Star Trek. Like, it's just the way it's built. There are some flaws, but I really do think that they're on good track. And they're kind of maintaining that. So for me, it's working. And Red Angel, I'm still thinking it's Michael. I don't know why.
It's possible.
You know what? And Spock said she. He actually used the term she. Michael, I think, said he, and then she, and Spock at another time said she, and I was like, I don't know. I'm just still thinking it's like future Michael. I'm just gonna stick with it.
All right, Sonia, trekked it or wrecked it? Discovery, and who's the Red Angel?
Okay, trekked it.
Okay.
Trekked it because of continuing storyline of this Red Angel and time and changing time. To me, it's just fascinating. The science behind it, the emotion behind it. And I like the way they're handling it. Of course, they went back to Talos. Spock spoke. Yeah. I am enjoying all the aspects of it of a Star Trek crew. I'm enjoying the relationships, and so for me, it was definitely trekked it. Even though, may I just say, and I've talked to you about this in the past, Matt, I don't like the lens flares. I think the lens flares are taking away from a lot of us seeing facial expression. The one time the lens flare worked for me in the scene was when it happened right before Vina changed, when they changed Vina back into... That was the only time it worked. Otherwise, it kept just blurring things. It kept getting in the way, and I just didn't enjoy it.
I think they used one too, like where the Pike transition from like old Pike to this one. There's kind of something there. I don't know.
It might have been,
yeah. Maybe. And I would also like it if the plots had more meat. I did not love how the Spock's story was not resolved. It was a little too shallow, and they had to rely on the nostalgia, which was one of the things I liked. It worked in its own way.
Yeah, and I've got to say, Ariam is still the Red Angel.
Yeah, actually, I would have to say I love the Michael Burnham storyline, but it's
I'm gonna write it
so.
out.
But now it's very intriguing. Who's underneath?
Yeah.
That?
If I said Arium too, it would be no fun. Let's,
It's a good point.
let's mix it up a bit.
I think Arium's the Red Angel, but I also think this episode is a really difficult one to say whether it trekked or wrecked, because it is so desperately trying to be Star Trek without really achieving it. But I think this was bad TV because it was a long episode that essentially built up so much leading to here and then delivered on none of it. It just gave us Spock talking, which, if they hadn't set up that problem, I wouldn't think Spock wouldn't be able to talk. Like, I just don't think it was good TV, which is weird because they've been on a really good upswing in the back half of this season. But this episode was kind of not great for me. Still, when compared to episode 3 of this season, that was the terrible Klingon episode.
Yes.
This is like way better than that.
If there's no Klingon, we're already.
It helps a lot.
Yeah,
it helps a lot. But I'm gonna say this episode trekked it on sheer nostalgia. But I don't think it was good. I do not think it was good. Let's talk about the Orville. Did it trek it or wreck it for you, Vanya?
Come this way first?
Yeah.
I'm going to be tough on Orville.
I know you are.
Listen, I'm going to say right off, it trekked it. But because
it used a Star Trek script.
Not because, yeah, exactly. Not because it has any original. They're not doing any work. Like, they're obviously doing work. I'm not going to be totally insulting. But Discovery, first of all, I love Discovery's episode. And they have the hard job. They're the ones who have to prove themselves. Orville they don't have to prove themselves in name, and they don't even have to prove themselves in a script. They're basically ripped off the script, like they've added a couple new original things they just threw in there, but it's almost verbatim a TNG episode. That ticks me off big time. So I'm gonna trek it reluctantly just because it has to be trekked because I've already seen it. I don't even know if I like this episode because I'm like, oh yeah, I love this episode. I have to like this episode. I love The Wounded. How am I gonna say that I hate this one? It's exactly the same.
Well,
down to their main character being like the Irish guy. Like, it's like, really the Irish guy? Like, that's what you're gonna choose him? Anyway, of course I like the episode. I've already seen it.
Well, I mean, they made A Star Is Born 4 times, and the first one is still the one that is the best.
For me, it's the second one.
Yeah, and I mean, if they had done something, if they had made me like this episode more than The Wounded, then I would not be giving them a hard time. But if you're going to take every aspect, almost any important aspect of the episode, and say that, like, you want me to throw you a bone? No, I'm not going to be hard on Discovery and then super easy on these guys for doing way less work script-wise. Just saying.
So
trekked it reluctantly.
I'm conflicted about this because I do like that storyline, but we have seen it many times. Even I remember episodes enjoying that storyline. I found the balance was off again, and I feel like if it trekked it, it's a very weak episode of one of the weakest episodes of Star Trek, like in a season 3, where it's like number 19, and they have to have because they had
it's a filler episode.
Yes, and I also am finding the visuals. I'm finding the sets to be distracting too. They've moved to a more serious tone, trying to focus, and usually they succeed. But the sets are a little too sitcom-y for me, and not, I would say, heavy enough or serious enough for Star Trek. It's hard for me to take it seriously because of those sets, I have to be honest.
And the uniform. And the uniforms.
They look more like uniforms than the marching band stuff.
No, so. I disagree. But whatever, And we agree to disagree.
Even the shuttle shape doesn't seem to be serious anymore. Although I have to say, I did like the way that he was saved. That Malay was saved. I thought, it's kind of cool.
That's cool.
We haven't
A proper spacewalk.
Yeah, I've only ever
Yeah.
seen that in Enterprise. I don't think I've ever seen it in another
And
series show.
It's also a movie move.
Yes,
like that's a thing
right.
they do in a
Yeah.
Star Trek movie.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that was pretty cool.
that
to see.
was cool. I don't know why he didn't just stun Oren like the moment he had a phaser on him, but whatever.
Well, it's a friend. I can see them. I can see where the hesitation comes from. But yeah, terrible.
He just
choice.
stunned Tala for like a trick.
Yeah.
So why?
Yeah, but she's Chilean. You could put her in a guillotine and she'd be fine.
But he is heavy on that stun, so who knows what he
Yeah.
would have done.
I'm still conflicted. I'll say
Yeah.
that it just barely tracked it for me. Just barely
Yeah,
tracked it for me.
I can see where you guys are coming from on that. This the episode 100% tracked it for me because it
Yeah.
is an episode of Star Trek.
Yes, yeah.
And when it comes to it being good TV, I mean, we can use Star Trek as an example. After Best of Both Worlds, they did Family. An episode that is very small and very personal, and it's about Jean-Luc Picard and wine. Like, it's a very relaxed time. But I feel like...
Until the fight.
Right, until the big old
Mud.
fight in the mud. Yeah, nice brotherly sibling brawl. But I feel like in this, they had the chance to go small before next week's finale. But they instead made the stakes enormous with the Krill and Peace, and is that going to work out? And it's going to make it weird for next week because it's going to be the finale. So how... Getting bigger, biggest is a hard thing to do when you're starting at Identity Part 2.
Yeah. I don't know. I swear I said where you asked like maybe last week, where should they go from now? And I said they should do an episode, a throwaway, like completely different, a Star Trek episode, like style episode, but like a Monster of the Week, just do whatever. Yeah. I think I might have said that, where I'm just like, just get away from this, just get completely away from it.
And maybe next week they're going to completely deliver in spades, and we're going to be so pleased, and they're going to do something brilliant with the Krill. But I got to say, I agree with you with these sets. And it's not just because Discovery has blown their load on building everything so expensive. Like, Enterprise was rugged.
Yeah.
And there's something just too smooth and toy-like about what's happening on the Orville.
Yeah.
But the Next Generation.
Yeah.
Even Deep Space Nine. Toys. Everything is
was
toys.
But it was still it wasn't distracting. It felt like a drama. This one feels like...
It seems a bit like how the Millennium Falcon in Solo feels like a toy, but the Millennium Falcon in every other movie feels like a lived-in thing.
Because it has been. Because Millennium Falcon is brand new, right?
Yeah.
In Solo, right? It's pretty new.
Well, and Lando's looking after it.
Yeah, right.
Look out.
But I do agree with you. It is like it's so clean. It's so bright. Sometimes I'm almost like
turn the lights
like turn it down.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Which they
it's
did
funny.
for the Krill.
It's
in this
funny
episode.
with Discovery we're like crank it up,
Yeah.
turn the lights up, and they did turn up the lights somewhat. They did.
And mostly the ones that go right in the camera, making lens flares happen everywhere.
No, but I mean this everywhere. Like it is a brighter. It's a brighter show now. But the Orville, I just there's certain things like the uniforms. I just can't. I don't know. They make me so. They make me upset.
They really work for me. There's something about the way you can unzip them in the way that the old movie ones that Kirk had, you could unbutton and you were no longer on duty, and then you put it back up and you'd be on duty.
I feel like they're all walking around like football players. You talk about band uniform. It's like I feel like they should have tassels now on the epaulets, just around the edges, because it's just I don't know. And everybody's like Kelly, this beautiful woman. I'm not saying that she should be like Troy, all like tight or like 7 or 9. I'm just saying, like, how do you make that woman look unflattering? But they manage it.
I think they all look like convincing future soldiers.
The only uniform I kind of like is Claire's, because it's it's a jacket and it's a belt, and I was obsessed with Crusher's jacket and stuff like that. That's the only one I like. Everything else, I just.
And that goes way back. Like the Doctor gets to have short sleeves.
It makes it kind of cartoonish. You know what I mean? And so then, and I do think that's kind of how he like squeaked in to having a show like this. It's like, it's going to be heavy on the comedy side. And then, you hear him in an interview saying, it's a drama that with comedy in it. Like it was his like foothold.
Yeah.
Seth MacFarlane's foothold to be like, yeah, I'm making a comedy show in space. And then as soon as he got that foothold, he's like,
Surprise,
now I'm making TNG now.
Yeah.
Again.
Yep. And I have zero problems with it.
I have some problems with it.
All right, well, there is only one episode of The Orville left, and we're going to be talking about that one next week. And then, after that, it's just a couple more Discovery. And that'll be it. In fact, next week's episode is called the Daedalus Project.
I just want to give you guys a heads up. If they have Spock and Pike talking to each other like that in the next few episodes, it doesn't matter how bad they are. Just want to tell you.
Yeah, just let them hang. Just let them hang.
He smiled.
I hope he
Pike
keeps that beard. I'm digging the beard.
Yeah?
But,
I don't like it.
It works. I mean,
it's gotta go.
To answer your question,
and if Michael and Spock want to have those Vulcan sibling arguments, also
they're fun.
Non-stop.
That is good.
Just do a show.
I'm up for those. I mean, we've seen this more than we've seen a relationship between Spock and Cybok now. So,
right, that's true.
All right, and that guy came out of nowhere.
I did feel like I was a little upset with Spock because at this stage, as somebody who has logic, at this stage he should look back at a young Michael and think, oh man, my sister's trying to protect me.
Yeah.
But he's still just real pissed.
He's really mad.
And I was just like, I realized that it was really troubling, but. Come on, she was a baby. Like she's a baby too.
Yeah.
She was a kid too.
Like
and
my brother and I threw each other down the stairs. We came at each other with knives.
I almost died so many times with my siblings.
So your sister called you names.
Yeah,
Jesus.
I mean, it is harsh. Like it's not like the regular children. She was trying to hurt him.
But it's nothing
But at
that
this,
McCoy
he's
hasn't
like
called
a
him.
grown man now.
Yeah,
like,
but
he should be able to
that's
tap in
Spock's
that.
human side. That's Spock's
You
human
think
side.
that it's more vulnerable,
Yeah.
more so than even a full human because he has to struggle between the two.
I think he's just. I think even a half a human might need a little bit of time to forgive and to stop being pissed off.
I almost think that his human side is more dangerous than because we live with our emotions all the time. So maybe it's more
because he
overpowering.
has to repress them.
Because he can't let them out all the time.
Yeah, it's like when you take a Band-Aid off. It's very sensitive under there.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give him that. But I'm kind of like, come on,
Guys.
dude.
Bit of a wiener. Yeah. Yeah, it was nice. All right, guys, on that note, we are looking forward to talking to you next week about the finale of Orville Season 2. See you then.